It's time for Trending Left. And if this is your first time joining us, I do advise you to please brace yourself because it's about to get cuckoo in this joint. We're going to start today in the Big Apple, where a video has just leaked of a drag queen that reportedly was invited to speak and perform for students at, wait for it, I want to make sure I say this right, Grace Church High School in New York. Yes. Apparently, the school hosted the drag queen for their annual LGBTQ Pride Chapel. Here's a taste of the rainbow.
Her name is Britta Filter, and she is the Queen of New York! Yeah!
Yeah. Now, just a little suggestion. I would love to see the Pride community try that maybe in a mosque next year. Just a little suggestion. But wait, here's a social media post from the drag queen who delighted so many. At the Britta Filter says, I literally went to church to teach children today. A Catholic high school here in NYC invited me to their Pride Chapel. Visibility matters, and I'm so honored to have had the chance to talk to you about my work as an LGBTQ plus drag queen activist. I did not realize that when you walk into the church and go towards the altar that now, hey, that's just the runway from here on out, apparently. Now, speaking of woke education, a teacher has taken to the TikTok to coach other supposed educators on how a simple student survey apparently gives him all the power in the world to hide things from parents. I present the skewed liberal thinking of modern-day educators.
Something really inspiring and also a little bit concerning I'm hearing a lot of teachers talk about is asking students their pronouns. This tells me that these teachers really care about their trans and non-binary students and want to make them feel comfortable in class. Unfortunately, asking about pronouns can make trans and non-binary students more uncomfortable because they're forced into a situation where they either need to lie or are forced to come out when they're not ready to. That's why this year I created these survey cards that ask students their pronouns if they're comfortable with me using those pronouns in front of their peers, and definitely if they're comfortable with me using those pronouns with their parents and families. My cards also ask students the name they want to be called in class, as well as their most trusted adult in the building.
Wait a minute. I thought having any sort of ID is somehow racist, bigoted, all this other things going against the democracy of this country, blah, 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 blah. Or is that only for voting and, getting other things such as a driver's license? We can't do that, but we can do this because it's for pronouns. Sure, why not? Well, maybe you may be saying to yourself, Katie, I remember learning about gender and pronouns back in middle school, but we only had 2 genders back in those days, all of 5 seconds ago. And you would be right. It was a much simpler time. But today here, not 5 minutes ago, middle school is when the trans surgery happens. So kids need to be educated much, much earlier. Like when they're, 3, 4 years old. Because any later than that makes it much harder for the Rainbow Mafia to convince children that their agenda is completely normal. I give you that statement straight from the unicorn's mouth.
We need to talk to preschoolers about sexuality and gender because any later is too late. The long answer to this is that this is the age when children start to self-identify. They start to understand themselves and in relation to the world around them. They need to understand different gender diversity because the Academy of Pediatrics actually says that most children have a solid understanding of their gender identity by the age of 4, and that is inclusive of cis as well as trans and non-binary kids. Preschoolers are exposed to sexuality every day. Just look at literally any Disney movie where there is heterosexual kissing. Once you get past this age, it's a lot harder to undo and complicate the ideas of the kind of cis heteronormative world that these kids and we are in.
That is the best advertisement for why you should keep your kids at home as long as possible and not push them into these government schools where, yes, in preschool, they are going to put this onto your child because instead of learning that they should treat each other with respect and start to learn how to read and then to write and, color inside the lines, something silly like that, instead, what their focus is pushing sexuality on your children. But not just male, female, two genders. Like we all learned. They're pushing all the things that we've been talking about for years now. And speaking of the pushing the pride agenda as early as possible, an elementary teacher in Minnesota is giving her recommendations for kindergarten through second grade summer reading. I introduce you to Jack, not Jackie, a book about a cross-dressing transgender toddler. Just what every school principal should be recommending for 5-year-olds. Bring on all that edumacating stuff, please.
I've been doing some reading this summer, and so I thought I would share a couple of books because you have a little bit of time left to do some reading. I also read Jack, Not Jackie by Erica Silverman. Phenomenal read. So if you're a K1, 2, 3 even, it's a really good read called Jack, Not Jackie. And I really enjoyed that, and I'm excited it'll be on our shelves in the media center this fall.
Yes, and I'm sure she got a sticker from the children's librarian for finishing it because she was so proud that she was able to read that entire book, which shows you how well she reads. Now, finally, we're going to wrap things up with the latest case of TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. This poor woman seems to be caught in a world where she is constantly burdened by the fact that she might find out that anyone who breathes air around her may have voted for DJT. Not to worry, operators are standing by as we speak to find a cure for whatever this woman has.
Now, 2022, I'm looking at the receptionist at the doctor's office and wondering if she's a Trump supporter. I'm wondering if my mechanic voted for Trump. I don't want you fixing my car, right? At the supermarket, the cashier who's ringing me through. Did you vote for Trump? Because I don't want you ringing my up. My dentist, don't be drilling me if you voted for Trump. Is anybody else like me?
Unfortunately, yes. But maybe you can all just go hang out together and maybe someone's a mechanic in that group or someone can ring up your groceries because you can go off and live in your commune together. Well, thankfully, though, that's going to wrap up this segment. More craziness next time.